What's going on, patriots and fellow protectors? Welcome back to the firing line. Listen, if you've spent enough weekends burning powder at your local range, you start noticing a pattern. There's a certain class of sidearm that almost never shows up in the used glass case at the gun shop. Nobody trades them. Nobody comes in whining about how they don't run. I'm talking about the heavyweight champs of the defensive handgun world. These are the pistols that kill the buyer's remorse the second you swipe that card. Today, we're breaking down the top 5 defensive handguns that shooters will defend until their dying breath. We're counting this list from number 5, all the way down to number 1. These are battle-proven workhorses. We're talking about weapon systems that have eaten dirt, survived the sandbox, and pushed through decades of punishing military deployments without choking. By the end of this, you'll have a crystal clear picture of which platforms deserve your trust and your money. You're also going to see exactly why our number 1 pick is still the undisputed gold standard for concealed carry and home defense. So stick around for that top spot, because that platform has literally shrugged off torture tests. That would turn your average plastic striker-fired gun into a paperweight. Now, to be clear on how we're judging this, I'm not reading some glossy corporate brochure. I'm pulling from decades of real trigger time and verifiable range data. We're talking high-volume shooters, the kind of folks who send tens of thousands of rounds of 9mm downrange every single year. These are the exact tools armed citizens and sworn professionals stake their lives on when things go completely sideways. Kicking it off at number 5, we've got a true aristocrat of the gun safe, the Browning High Power. This pistol is basically the final stroke of genius from the godfather of modern handgun design, John Moses Browning. He laid the foundation, and Dieudonné Saïve over at FN in Belgium carried it across the finish line and created a straight-up legend. When this piece of history hit the scene back in 1935, it rewrote the rulebook for defensive handguns. Think about that era for a second. American cops were still walking the beat with 6-shot revolvers, or they were carrying a 7-round single-stack 1911. Then the high power kicks the door off the hinges. It brought 13 rounds of 9mm to the fight. In a magazine that sat perfectly flush with the frame, it became the blueprint for the original Wonder 9. And the combat pedigree on this thing is ridiculous. Over 50 sovereign nations adopted it as an official service pistol. You had British Special Air Service operators clearing rooms with it. Canadian infantrymen dragged it through the worst conditions imaginable. During the Second World War, the Allies leaned on it hard. And at the same time, Axis forces were hoarding captured high powers whenever they could grab them. That kind of mutual respect from two opposing sides of a global war, you basically never see that in firearm history. Mechanically, the high power runs a cam lock operating system. That was a huge evolutionary jump. Exponentially stronger, more reliable, way beyond the older swinging link barrel setups from earlier generations. But the real magic happens the moment you actually grab the gun. That grip angle is a masterclass in human engineering. When you punch out into a normal firing stance, those iron sights just appear in your sight picture. No conscious adjustment, no fighting the gun. If you're looking to add one to the collection, hunt down the classic Belgian-made FN pistols. The craftsmanship is on another level. That deep, mirror-like bluing, that meticulous hand-fitting. Those vintage guns are breathtaking. Modern assembly lines just don't build them like that anymore. Carrying a pristine high power feels like carrying a high-end custom pistol. It stays surprisingly thin for a double-stack design. It balances beautifully, and it puts rounds on target with lethal precision. But you better be ready to hunt, and you better be ready to pay. A solid shooter condition Belgian model usually runs between $800 and $1,200. If you want the modernized Mark III versions, with upgraded sights and actually usable ambidextrous safeties, plan on $1,000 to $1,500. And if you're chasing true collector pieces, like a tangent sight variant or a heavily documented German occupation bringback, you better have deep pockets. Those historical centerpieces can bring $2,000 to $4,000 at auction. Just remember this. Every modern high-capacity sidearm you own today owes a debt to this steel and wood masterpiece. Sliding into number 4, the SIG Sauer P226. Here's the deal. If standard infantry needed a basic tool, Special operations needed a scalpel, and the P226 is an apex predator in the tactical handgun world. This is the exact pistol the United States Navy SEALs chose. After it survived the nastiest, most abusive testing protocols the military could dream up. When Tier 1 guys choose a specific gun to take into the unknown, everybody else pays attention. Quick history lesson. During those legendary military trials, that test batch of P226 pistols chewed through over 228,000 rounds of ammunition. It didn't just squeak by, it demolished the benchmark. It earned the title of the most reliable service pistol in that specific trial lineup. When you strap a SIG P226 into your holster, you're carrying precision machinery built for the apocalypse. You feel the build quality the second your hands lock onto the grip. Every roll pin, every decocker lever, every internal spring, it all feels like it was intentionally overbuilt by obsessive engineers. And because it's a hefty, full-sized metal frame 9mm, it soaks up felt recoil like a sponge. If you can snag one with the factory short reset trigger, you're in for one of the best trigger experiences in the industry. And the reset is so short, you can run speed drills faster than you thought you could. That heavy alloy frame anchors the pistol in your hands, so your front sight, or your red dot, bounces right back into the A-zone. The mechanical accuracy is flat out ridiculous, because the barrel-to-slide fit and slide rail fitment are so tight. This is the kind of handgun that immediately tightens your groups and makes you look like you've been doing this forever. I know instructors who have run the same P226 for 20 years, thousands upon thousands of rounds down the pipe, and they've gotten through it with basic upkeep, with very little parts replacement along the way. That reliability gets so consistent it becomes predictable. It doesn't care if you forgot to lube it. It doesn't care if it's dripping with CLP, feed it the cheapest steel-cased range trash, or premium jacketed hollow points. It cycles everything with violent consistency. This is a legacy battle implement, built like a bank vault. Locking down number 3, the Beretta 92 FS. It's time to put some respect on this Italian classic. For decades, this was the standard issue sidearm of the United States Armed Forces. Let that sink in. This was the primary secondary weapon strapped to the thighs of our men and women in the most hostile environments on Earth, from the blinding sandstorms of the Iraqi theater to the freezing, jagged mountains of Afghanistan. The Beretta 92 FS answered the call. If this platform had some fatal design flaw hiding underneath, the military machine would have exposed it a long time ago. The most iconic physical trait of the 92 FS is that open-top slide, heavily skeletonized. When you lock the action back and look down, the barrel is right there, fully exposed. That's not Hollywood styling. That's smart engineering. It gives spent brass the biggest possible exit window. And because that ejection port is so massive, a stovepipe malfunction is incredibly rare. It's a mechanical failsafe designed to keep the gun cycling. When your heart rate is spiking to 180 beats per minute, racking the slide on a properly maintained 92 FS is its own experience. It feels like sliding 2 pieces of oiled glass across each other. The machining is absurdly smooth. During Department of Defense testing phases, these pistols fired tens of thousands of rounds, with zero lubrication and without a bore snake ever touching them. Now look, as a civilian defender, you still clean your gear, but knowing your carry gun has that kind of mechanical buffer, that brings real peace of mind. On the firing line, this pistol is a dream to shoot. The grip is undeniably thick. That can be a hurdle for smaller hands. But if you can manage it, that thickness gives you a ton of surface area to lock in a rock-solid master grip. The aluminum frame nails the center of gravity. It naturally drops the muzzle back on target for your second and third shots. Yes, you've got to train through that heavy double-action first pull before you get to the crisp single-action break. And yes, some shooters genuinely hate the slide-mounted safety and decocker, and some folks will argue it's too heavy and too bulky for inside-the-waistband concealment. But when the chips are down and you desperately need a piece of lead to leave that barrel, the Beretta 92 FS will deliver. Stepping into number 2, the CZ75. If you don't spend weekends at competitive action shooting matches, or you don't study European counter-terror units, this one might not be on your radar, But I'm telling you right now, the shooters who adopt this platform become absolute evangelists. It is, without question, one of the flattest shooting, most naturally pointing, all-steel defensive pistols you can buy today. The ergonomics of the CZ75 are legendary. The second you establish your firing grip, it feels like the frame was custom poured for your hand. It's got a pronounced beaver tail, so you can choke up high on the backstrap. That high grip creates an exceptionally low-bore axis. And in shooting physics, a low-bore axis translates directly into better recoil control. Because you're managing a solid steel frame, that heavy mass just eats the recoil impulse of the 9mm cartridge. But the true genius is in the slide geometry. On most polymer pistols, the slide rides on the outside of the frame rails. The CZ75 does it differently. It uses an inverted rail design. The slide physically rides inside the frame. That creates a lockup that feels like a solid block of steel. And the cycling stroke is unbelievably smooth. I've watched competitive shooters dump thousands of rounds of the dirtiest, cheapest imported steel-cased ammo through these guns. They don't stutter. Load it with premium defensive rounds for the nightstand or absolute bulk ammo garbage for training. The CZ75 devours it all. It started life as a law enforcement and military tool, but the accuracy is so laser-like. The competitive shooting world adopted it as their own. Listen, if a handgun can survive the brutal round counts of a competitive Grandmaster's training schedule, it's going to laugh at your weekend range trips. And that all-steel heft brings a level of rugged, indestructible toughness that modern injection-molded plastics just can't replicate. There's a running joke in the gun community about the CZ75. Its biggest flaw is how addictive it is. The moment you bring your first one home, you're statistically guaranteed to end up buying 3 more variants. It's an heirloom-grade defensive tool, and you're probably going to pass it down to your kids. And finally, taking the #1 spot, we've got the undisputed reigning champion of relentless reliability, the Glock 19. Look, I can already hear the comment section warming up, and I'll acknowledge it. This is not boutique. It's not handcrafted functional range art. It doesn't have the sweeping, elegant lines of a classic hammer-fired 1911. If we're being honest, holding a Glock can feel like gripping a customized polymer 2x4. But there's a very deliberate reason the Glock 19 is the most used, most universally issued, and most widely recognized defensive pistol on Earth. It refuses to quit. The Glock 19 basically wrote the modern manifesto on combat reliability. The whole weapon system is made up of roughly 34 individual components. From a pure mechanical engineering standpoint, fewer moving parts means a lower statistical chance of catastrophic failure. It uses a stripped-down striker-fired mechanism, refined and perfected across multiple generations. You can drop it in a muddy ditch. You can dunk it in a swamp. You can drag it behind a truck on a dirt road and leave it baking in the sun on your dashboard. When you finally pick it up, clear the gun, and press that trigger, it's going to light the primer and send a bullet downrange. End of story. The biggest reason American concealed carriers stay married to the Glock 19 is simple: versatility. It lives in the Goldilocks zone of handgun size. It's compact enough to disappear under a normal t-shirt, inside the waistband. But it still runs a flush-fitting magazine holding 15 rounds of 9mm. And it gives you enough grip real estate for a full, confident master grip during fast strings of fire. I call it the Honda Civic of the tactical world all the time. It's not winning beauty contests against a tuned, skeletonized race gun, but it starts up and runs perfectly every single time you turn the key, with zero drama, with minimal maintenance. Ask any longtime Glock 19 owner what they think. You'll hear the same story on repeat. They bought it 10 years ago. They stick it in a holster every morning, and it has literally never jammed on them. When you're picking the life-saving instrument that protects your family, that track record is the only statistic that matters. And for the guys who can't leave a factory gun alone, the aftermarket for Glock is a monster. You can drop in a polished, flat-face trigger. You can send the slide out for custom optic milling. You can add a fluted match-grade barrel and bolt-on suppressor height sights. You can tweak it until the only original factory part left is the serialized frame rail. But here's the part people forget. Right out of that famous plastic Tupperware box, in its most basic configuration, it does exactly what it was designed to do. It's rugged, it's utilitarian, and it's worth every dollar you put into it. All right, let's tie this whole thing together. Those are 5 proven weapon systems that erase buyer's remorse, whether you're chasing the surgically precise, custom-fit feel of the CZ75 or the brick-like survivability of the Glock 19. You can't really make a bad call with this lineup. If you're looking to upgrade your everyday carry rotation, or you want a serious workhorse for the range bag, any one of these 5 platforms will perform flawlessly. If you appreciate this kind of real, no-nonsense firearms breakdown, do me a favor. Smash that like button, hit subscribe to join the channel, and drop a comment below. Tell me which one of these 5 pistols is sitting in your gun safe right now. Stay dangerous, train hard, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.